Hey everybody, before we get started with our regular episode, which is a lot of fun, Adam and I talk about the sort of few decisions left before opening day, and then we have a great guest, comedian, great stand-up comic, and one of the correspondents from The Daily Show, Roy Wood Jr., on to talk about his love of the Cubs and this season. Before that, we had some late-breaking news where Kyle Hendricks has signed an extension. Look at that, the Cubs actually making a move of some sort. Kyle Hendricks has been signed to an extension through basically 2024. $7.4 million in 2019, $12 million in 2020, then $14 in 21, $14 in 22, $14 in 23, and a $16 million option for 2024. This is great. This is awesome. Adam is not here at the moment, but I think we agree signing Kyle Hendricks until 2024 is a good move that kicks ass. And it's nice to have a little good news before we actually start the season up. And now we're really ready to go. Let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast, and the last Chicago Cubs podcast of Away Games that is happening before the actual season begins. I'm Kevin.
We did it. We made it through a whole offseason. I'm sorry, introduce yourself.
No, that's okay. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm Kevin McCaffrey. I'm here with Adam Mamawala. Yeah, you're right. We made it through without missing.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Especially
I feel like there were only a few episodes that we were really like, well, there's nothing to say.
Yeah, well, we're here again, just for ourselves, just a late career Cal Ripken just showing up because.
And don't get me wrong, that was not thanks to the Ricketts. That was us being creative.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was us mailing it in on our own. You know,
right.
we were just bringing the energy to mail it in to you. And I got to say, I don't know whether it's. I think it's good. Our ratings have not dipped from the regular season, so
that's good.
Yeah, I think the people who are here are here. So thanks for listening. And you can holler at us with questions, things to talk about, anything you want. Really, at Away Games Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, and awaygamespodcast@gmail.com. Holler at us. But yes, the season is starting.
Yeah,
It
is starting.
What are we feeling?
Honestly, I feel really good, and I want to just throw this in there because on the off chance that so we have Roy Wood Jr., who we're going to interview in a little bit, or have interviewed, and we're going to throw that on. So in case you are listening to Away Games for the first time, basically the premise is that we're a couple comedians who are originally from Illinois, and we both are obsessed with the Cubs, and we talk about them every Wednesday. So if this is your first time listening, welcome, and thanks for checking us out. Mm-hmm. So. How do I feel about the season? I feel like almost optimistic to a point that I'm mad at myself.
Oh, sure. But I think so does Pedro Strop. Pedro Strop was dropping straight up 2016 comparisons in quotes
I love it.
Last night, saying this is 2016 again.
Yeah.
And that's how everybody is. So, yeah, I mean, that is how you're supposed to feel. But I kind of feel it's like the year right after the World Series, I thought was weird. 2017 was a little weird. Last year, obviously the offense was broken in the second half, but also so much went wrong, and they still had the best record in the National League until game 163.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that unreasonable to think any sort of bounce back and health, which is not guaranteed. This team should be very, very good.
Well, yeah, and it's like it doesn't seem irrational to expect the guys who struggled last year to bounce back. Like I don't think it's fair to say like, oh, everyone is going to have a better year than last year because, Javi had such an incredible year that he could just naturally regress a little bit from the numbers, if nothing else, because he was so exceptional last year. But to think that KB just being healthy is going to mean that he's back to a close to MVP level is not unrealistic. And to feel like Contreras is going to be back in a big way. I feel like even if just those two guys contribute a lot more, and if Schwarber, regresses or actually improves to the mean in terms of hitting in clutch positions, which I do think was an anomaly. I feel like just those three things and Darvish could be a huge difference maker.
Absolutely, yeah. And
not only not having Chatwood for the first half of the year,
right?
Games.
Yeah, and I think, and the division's better, but I think they are going to be better too. I guess the main newsy things to talk about this week. So of course, Dunsing DFA'd. We're all still reeling from.
But it is kind of surprising, only because of the Cubs' penny pinching ways.
Right. Yeah, they DFA'd him. He still had like $3.5 million, I think, on the contract, and.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean...
And it's possible nobody picks him up. I mean, he might stay with the Cubs because I don't know what team would want him, but maybe they do.
Unless they worked out some sort of, someone claims him on waivers and they work out some sort of bad contract swap or something with somebody, which has been bandied about, but nothing as we speak right now. No news on that. And then Ian Happ being sent down to start the year that was the biggest surprise, although it almost as surprising to me was how much not a surprise it was to everyone making the decision. They said it was unanimous among front office coaches and like the executives. They said it was a unanimous decision, which it seems weird to me just because maybe part of the reason why is he was thinking he was safe and they don't want that. It seems weird that, like, I don't think he knew that it was that on the cusp from, but I don't know that, but
I think if he had, then the reaction, I'm sure he would have been upset either way, but perhaps he would not have been as blindsided by it as he seems to have been.
Right. I think so. Yeah. And I totally understand. I didn't look exactly at spring numbers before we started this, but I know they weren't good.
It was he was hitting like 150.
Right. And he basically was hitting in the ones for the second half of last year too.
Right.
But he's only, I believe he's 24 years old, and he obviously he has so many skills. He has like the vast majority of baseball skills. The one that has really dragged since he's been up in the majors is making contact with balls that are in the strike zone. He was literally the worst in the league among guys with the amount of at-bats that he had last year at making contact with balls in the strike zone. And that's one of those things where I just don't know how improvable that is.
It's weird. I mean, obviously it's a great asset to be a guy who can hit bad pitches, but you also have to hit bad pitches, meaning like out of the zone pitches.
Right.
So it's always seemed like a little bizarre that is the case, because when you look at his, the like Ted Williams hot zone chart for Happ, it makes no sense.
Right. Yes, exactly. And
it's like there's a hole in his bat.
Yeah. It seems like there's just a glitch somewhere, and maybe that is exactly what they're thinking. Like, go to Iowa, pound it out there, and it's a thing where he wouldn't be getting it. I can see it from the perspective of. This guy needs at-bats every single day. He would not be getting that in the majors.
Right.
Just almost no one in the Cubs lineup gets that just in the majors just because of how everything shifts around. So it's a way to really try to have him hammer out a couple specific problems. But then again, my thought is, he was like this the whole second half of last year. We've had a whole offseason and a spring training.
Right.
This should have been the really pointed focus the whole time. And if it was, and it hasn't gotten better, it makes me wonder how much better it's going to get with the month in Iowa or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think, obviously the result is very different and their potential is very different. But when you look at Dunsing and Happ, it's a very similar situation. It's like these are guys who both struggled tremendously in the second half of last year. And I think we came into this spring saying like, all right, let's see how they do in the spring and kind of base our decisions off of that. And I'm sure if Dunsing had a 3 ERA in the spring, we wouldn't be here. But his ERA was like 11. And Happ was hitting 150. So you kind of have to make the decisions that you have to make. And I think it speaks to what Epstein said at the end of last year, which is like, we got to stop dreaming on guys and say like, okay, we all know what we want them to be. But if we're looking at them and saying this is what they are right now, we have to be able to acknowledge that. And it sucks for Happ. And I'm hoping that he's a kind of guy who like ultimately responds well to this and accepts the challenge. But there was an interesting piece in The Athletic yesterday. I don't know if you read it. I'm forgetting who wrote it, but it was basically about how strange it is seemingly that the Cubs are so willing to have this Iowa shuttle for pitchers, but are so stubborn in doing that with their hitters.
Oh, I didn't see that yet.
Waiting until almost it was too late to make that decision with Schwarber, not doing it with Happ last year, but being so free and easy doing it with pitchers all the time.
That's a good point. Yeah, because the Iowa shuttle, when Cubs fans say that phrase, when you hear that phrase, you specifically think of a pitching shuttle. Like you don't even. I mean,
relief pitching.
It's relief pitching. It's the same rules for all the players in terms, But that is a good point, and I think they do have enough. Not like starter depth, starting position player depth, but in terms of the guys who are making up that 4-man bench, I think there is enough. There is enough interesting guys at Iowa to make that a possibly useful shuttle. And as we talk about, it was also nice to see John Lester had some nice things to say about Happ. Happ has turned into a lot of these guys' best, some of these guys' favorite teammates we've heard over this offseason. So I really, really hope he's back. He just seems like a great guy and has all those skills. But as you mentioned about stop dreaming on guys and reward what's here, that has turned into really good news for Mark Zagunis, who, although it's not official yet, looks like he probably now makes the opening day roster as a guy who's been crushing the ball in spring training and who's been an on-base machine for the last couple of years at AAA.
Yeah, no, I think he could be a good 25th guy on the roster, and I also I feel like in the at-bats I've seen Bodie have in spring, he looks really, really sharp too. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping that Almora really rises to the occasion and solidifies himself as the everyday center fielder. Obviously, we're hoping that Schwarber looks good at the plate, and then I guess at that point, once Happ comes back, if they send Zagunis back down, he would probably be platooning a little bit more with Hayward, right?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And then it's the thing where you shift around. I don't think Ian Happ's a center fielder. I prefer to see Hayward in center if Almora's not going to be there, and then put Happ in a corner. I think Happ just is better in the corners than he is in center. But but also when you have Zobrist being second or a corner outfield, you can shift those guys around in a lot of different ways. And Happ even can play some infield, and I guess that's the thing with Zagunis. Zagunis is basically corner outfield. That's it.
Right.
But yeah, and as you said about Almora, it's the Happ going down thing. They do use Happ in center a lot, so it does seem like it also is kind of a sideways vote of confidence in the swing changes Almora's made this year and their feelings about him, which would be awesome. It would be great if he could bring that offensive level up a little bit to meet that great defense. And Almora being another guy who people just really respect as a dude on this team.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows what's going through his head, but I would think that when you're in a position like Almora has been in the past couple of years, you're probably really pressing to do the most you possibly can every time you start because you don't know if you're going to start the next day. And that's actually something I think it was Mooney and Sharma wrote a great piece. Did you read that?
Really
kind of long
good.
Piece?
Deep
it was
dive,
an amazing piece. Yeah. But it actually had to do with a lot of the stuff that even Ken mentioned last week on our season preview episode, which is that a lot of the investment in this Cubs team in the offseason has been in terms of internal stuff that maybe doesn't look that amazing on the outside because we're not making moves other than, Descalso and Brad Brock. But they're really focusing on hearing from players and coaches what went wrong last year and what can we do to improve that. And one of the things they mentioned in that article was that a lot of guys were having some anxiety around okay, if I don't play well today, am I not going to start tomorrow because of it? And I guess one of the things that they're trying to implement this year is letting people know before a series, hey, these are the starting lineups that we're planning for the next 3 days.
Yeah. And that's such it sounds like a minor thing, but it also sounds so obvious. It sounds, don't you do better at whatever job? If we have auditions or shows, it's better to know that thing is happening tomorrow than to have to react today to having a thing, because you just plan your day different.
Exactly. And for anybody else in an office, if you need me to stay in the office until 7:00 tomorrow, I'd rather know today and not have to find out at lunch tomorrow.
Yeah, just so you can be a human and get your shit together. Right. And so I think that's cool. I think that has to help. And as you say, hopefully it helps guys stop pressing in such a way where they know it's not, I didn't start the next day because I had that one bad at bat at the end of a game. Because thinking about one bad at bat obviously can be real spiraling. Because in a season with when you're getting 400 to 600 of them, depending on who you are, But we're talking about the end of the bench here and the last bullpen spot, but I'm excited. Let's get ready to friggin' go.
It's been a long, ever since the Cody Parkey double doink. It's been an extremely long offseason.
Yes, it was the Cody Parkey double doink for the Bears to lose against the Eagles, which Adam and I watched together in Bay Ridge,
in silence.
It's real, oof. And that was what a midpoint to this shit offseason. That was just a nice little stop in the middle for the double doink, and then hopefully the doinks are all off the foul poles when the Cubs are hitting. Those are fine doinks. Yeah.
And it would be, how nice would it be to see the Cubs come out of the gate by sweeping the Rangers, or just like even in the first couple weeks to really look sharp and have everybody shut up for a little while.
Oh, absolutely. Just sweep the Rangers, have our classic
sweep everybody. Just go 162 and out.
Yeah, exactly. That's Chris Bryant said that's the idea. Our classic heated rivals, the Texas Rangers of Arlington. If they were the Anaheim Angels, that's how they would be named. But
the Braves, so we know there's going to be at least 5 rain delays in that series.
Oh God, yeah, can't wait. Rain delays in a mall. Wonderful. That's great, and I hope Yu Darvish throws a no-hitter and pegs everyone he said he was going to peg as a joke.
Oh,
yeah. That would be wonderful. Cool. So should we get to our esteemed guest? Anything else to add before that?
No, yeah, we'll intro it, but we have Roy Wood Jr., who is a correspondent on The Daily Show and one of the best comics working today, and a huge Cubs fan, and we got to talk with him for a little bit, which was awesome. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and the next time we talk to you, the season will have begun. How about that?
Hell yeah. Holler at us at awaygamespod, Twitter, Instagram, and awaygamespodcast at gmail.com. And now let's go to Roy Wood calling in from The Daily Show voiceover booth.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Away Games Podcast, a Chicago Cubs podcast hosted by comedians from Chicago who are not living there now. We have a special guest on for a few minutes. We are here with Roy Wood Jr. You may know him from being a Daily Show correspondent, from being on Comedy Central, and a million other things. His most recent special, is it called No One Loves You? Is that it?
Yes.
Yes, that is out now. It was very good, and I'm not just saying that. I actually watched it.
You thought a comedy special was good.
Exactly.
That is,
I know. It's hard as a comedian to admit that.
Yeah.
But Roy's also a huge Cubs fan, and that's why we're talking to him. So thanks for hopping on for a little bit.
Hey, thank you guys, man. Thank you for having me. What are we, 2 weeks from opening? It seems like
Not
opening
even,
day
week
creeps
from
up
Thursday.
earlier and earlier or something, right?
Oh, it's going to start in February at some point. It's like every year it's a week earlier.
Playing in the middle of a polar vortex. All these cold weather teams.
Yeah, exactly. We got and I think the games in Japan start like Wednesday. They do like 2 weird Mariners A's games Wednesday, then they take a week off. They count those games, and then the Cubs stuff starts I think 27, 28. And you're calling us from The Daily Show right now, right? You're in the
Yeah, I'm literally at work, like I'm in the sound booth.
That's a very professional setup.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
much
literally
better than
in
where
the
we're recording
that we use
Nice.
for a lot of our pieces and stuff.
Oh, that's great. Are there a lot of other sports fans over working at The Daily Show?
Oh yeah, dude. We have a softball league that I'm in.
Okay.
There's a soccer league that a lot of people are in. I'm not in the soccer league. There's 2 fantasy pools. There's March Madness bracket going around right now. The diehards do NBA fantasy, but I cannot get into fantasy basketball.
Yeah.
Fantasy baseball is too much work. I used to do it, and there's days where I have like a little bit of extra time, and I might just do a fan duel one day.
Sure.
Just for one day, I'll pick 9 players. Okay, let me see. And I end up blowing $20. The one game I do enjoy is Beat the Streak.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
On the ESPN one?
It's whichever one where you have to pick a hitter every day. Someone
And you can't
to get a
repeat
base
the
hit every day.
How far have you gotten with that? Like, what's your best streak?
14.
14? Yeah.
Not quite DiMaggio, but it's
but that's bringing your batting average up.
That's more of a Jose Vizcaíno level type streak. Like it's fun, but it's also maddening because it's just always some random dude who comes in and just, I haven't played all month. What'll I do today? I'll go 6 for 7.
Exactly. The guy you're sitting in your fantasy league too.
Yeah. So
now,
I just got tired of that.
Now you're from Alabama, right?
Correct.
originally. But how? Like, what's the genesis of you being a Cubs fan? Was it your parents? Was it WGN? Like, what made you be a Cubs fan?
It's a little bit of both. So my father worked in Chicago for a long time, and he's old school Chicago. Like my dad knew Ernie Banks.
Oh, dang.
Like OG type shit.
Yeah.
And when we came down south, my father's never been a sports person, but every now and then the Cubs will be on. And then once I started playing baseball more organized, we only had one TV in the house that had cable. And so, back in the day, young people, every TV didn't have cable. It was usually only one TV in the house had the cable box.
Yeah.
So at night, I couldn't watch Atlanta Brave games because my dad would monopolize the television. And then during the day, that was the only time you could watch baseball. And if you were watching baseball, it was the Cubs because they were the only thing on. You could root for whoever you want, but you're not going to see them on TV until they play the Cubs.
Right.
So
it's a weird, almost accidental good marketing campaign for the Cubs to do it that way, because it's like
WGN,
you really indoctrinate the kids early. Because I was living on Long Island when I became a Cubs fan for same reason.
How did that happen? Oh, because of the day game.
Kind of same reason. My family's from Chicago, but I was living there, and also my dad was a Mets fan, and I asked my dad like, who don't the Mets like, and he was like the Cubs, and I was like, well, that's my team then. There we go. Let's go. You versus me.
Oh, you and your father have some issues to work out.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, did you get to be like in Chicago or at the World Series? Because I seem to remember seeing you on like ESPN around that time, like at the parade or something.
I was at Game 7. There's a picture of me that kind of went around the next day. It's just me holding a sign that said "Losers No More," which I actually made that sign during the rain delay after the 9th inning.
Oh my God!
if you look at the top of the sign, there's like a wet mark around it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'd come into the stadium with poster board, and I just could never figure out what I wanted to put on the sign.
You went in and riffed a sign. Yeah.
And so I just went in, like during the rain delay, I'm standing in the tunnel in the outfield, and I just made a sign. I was just like, we're going to win. I'm just going to, that way, the moment we make that third out, I'm just unfurling this awesome banner.
Yeah. Because most Cubs fans are way too superstitious to even try to jinx, like, if I write "Losers No More," they're going to lose. I was almost in tears during that rain delay, and you're making arts and crafts. I'm pretty impressed.
Because I thought we were going to lose, so screw it. And if you're going to lose, the way I figure it, you may as well be happy while you're losing.
Yeah,
that's the only way to fly.
I mean, that was the brand for a long time. No one did happy while losing better than us.
It was funny because Cubs fans and Indian fans were both trying to like out-sadden each other, like out-sabotage each other.
Right.
We're gonna blow it. No, we're gonna blow it.
Yeah.
It was like the opposite of "I'm the best." It was just two sports fans just going, we screw up more. No, trust me, we screw up more.
It's a real self-trash talking, like Gary Payton at a therapist, just talking shit to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that I thought was a little funny during that game, but yeah, that was a blast to go to. I'm very, very happy, and there's not a lot of things that I'm not really a sneaker guy. I'm not a jewelry guy. I live in the city. I have no car. I don't wear a lot of expensive clothing and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself this one thing. I'm going to literally, you may never see this again. If the Cubs win, it literally may never happen in your lifetime again. This is basically a sports comment. Mm-hmm. So get the money and go. Yeah. The one thing I didn't do, though, I didn't get a hotel room because hotels were astronomical. So I flew into Cleveland. I landed at 4. I figured if they win, I would stay out and drink with some buddies until about 2.
Yeah. Cost efficient.
And you got a 6 a.m. flight back to New York.
Oh, you don't need a room for that.
Yeah, so I just kind of did the homeless man at the airport, Tom Hanks, the terminal type thing.
I love that even for a Cubs World Series game, you approached it like a road comic.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way,
Dude, the protocol has always been on the road. Even now to this day, if I'm not there for at least 5 hours, I'm not getting a room. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. If I'm not going to spend more than 5 hours in this space, I can figure out another way.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
There's safe places to sleep in your car. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean so Kevin went to game 3, I went to game 5.
My
Of the
mom
World
basically-
Series, you went to game
and
7.
ouch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, game 5 was great, but I'm sure we all spent at least like $1,000, and it's completely worth it. I do not regret.
Oh, my
that for a
mom,
second.
yeah, my mom was like, I mean, my mom was a special ed teacher, single mom, and she was like, we're getting tickets to the first home game. And I told, like, I was supposed to be with Tom Segura at Caroline's that weekend, and it was supposed to be a different weekend at first, and then it moved to what would be the World Series weekend. He was like, could you still do it? And I said, yeah, unless the Cubs are in the World Series, whatever. And he was like, haha, I'll take my chances. And
Wow.
then during the Dodgers game, he's like, "Do I got to get someone else?" It's like, "You do. I can't not go to this with my mom." And then perfectly they lost. But at that point, it was still game 3, so it wasn't like that sad yet.
You know what was really fucked up for me is that it took going to the World Series for me to realize that I don't really have a lot of friends that enjoy baseball. Mm-hmm. And I had no one to call. Like, I can't describe it in the outfield, but, I don't know how it was, in the richer seats, but the outfield, 10th row at the Jake for Game 7 was $2,000.
Jeez. Yeah.
And that was StubHub markup. I don't know what the face value, but in the cheap seats, when the Cubs won, there were Cub fans like calling their friends and family and crying, and like it may as well have been their own personal wedding proposal.
Right, yeah.
And I'm sitting there with a warped piece of cardboard that's water stained.
I hope you still have it.
Wearing a Chicago Cubs bathrobe, mind you.
Oh man, that's suitable for the weather too.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I get to enjoy this alone. Good.
You must have gotten texts, though. I mean, people know you're a Cubs fan.
Yeah, I got texts, but no one took a fight.
Right, yeah.
People were crying, literally.
Yeah.
There was a dude, you heard about the dude, took the radio to the grave, sat at the grave,
Oh, God.
to the game with his dead father's tombstone.
Yeah.
You should have gone there and sat with him.
No.
Write him a new note. Yeah. Yeah.
And come out of the ground like Thriller.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. calling the ball foul at the end. Yeah, but I mean that I think that just reinforces that was a good call on your part. If you didn't have other people that you could like sit and watch it with, that stadium had to be the closest thing you could get to like, all right, I'm here with other people who feel like me, even if I don't know them,
Yeah, I'm really good friends with Brian Doyle Murray.
Oh yeah.
He was the first person I reached out to. Kind of on some we did it, whatever. He had gone the previous year. His wife is from Kansas City. Mm-hmm. So they saw the Royals-Giants series. And then I think they were planning to come to the Cubs series, and something happened. I think he booked a show or whatever and ended up not being able to do it. The show he booked changed your production schedule.
Okay.
And that with World Series, and it just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, right. And I mean, unless you're Bill Murray, you kind of have to be where the show is. You can't just say, like, hey, I'm not working in October.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Murray came through, though.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I know we
great.
got to let you go pretty soon. Real quick before you do, what are your thoughts going into this season? Are you feeling reasonably optimistic, or how are you feeling?
Reasonably optimistic. We still need to see what Yu Darvish is going to be, and if he's going to be a reliable third arm, then I think we have a chance. But you're not going to beat the Brewers healthy. A lot of people forget that our World Series year, the Brewers were injured. I'm not putting an asterisk beside what we did.
Sure.
But the Brewers are healthy. They are to be respected and feared, as evidenced last year.
Mm-hmm. And they added Grandal. Their weakest spot was catcher, and they got better there.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like we have as good of a chance as anyone else, but the NL Central, based on the way the NL East is looking, I don't know if the wild card comes from the Central this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Cincy got completely better with Puig, but
better than last year, certainly.
So then you just lost a couple extra games.
Mm-hmm.
So
and Cardinals got Goldschmidt, yeah.
So you see, It's like there are these other things that I feel like everyone else in the division did, except for Pittsburgh, to really make themselves at minimum 10 to 15 games better.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a division where, if I'm not mistaken, in the middle of September, it was Cubs, Pirates, Brewers, Cubs, Cards, Brewers, all within 6 games of one another at one point.
For sure, yeah, at least I think, yeah.
It was tight. Like, there was separate 3 teams. There was like maybe at the most 8 games at any given time.
Right.
Separate until the separation started around September call-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you get that same gimme this year. I think the NL East is going to have 2 of the better teams. I still don't think the Nationals are terrible.
No, I think they're good. I mean, I think they're about as good as anybody. Yeah.
So you have to hope that they beat up on each other. But, New York has pitching, and if pitching stays healthy in New York is going to win an extra 10 to 15 games this year. So
Phillies, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe we're just holding serve until Mike Trout comes free and we back up the Brinks truck for him and Chris Bryant. And who do you think is going to be the first team to reach $1 billion in payroll?
I mean, my head says the Yankees, but
you would think
maybe the Sox.
Yeah, you would think the Yankees. It's weird that the Red Sox have been spending more than the Yankees lately, and then the Dodgers have all the money in the world, but they just don't want to spend it for they're still under the luxury tax.
I can tell you, it's not going to be the Marlins. That is my number one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the Marlins who lied to their season ticket holders and didn't give them any of the amenities that they promised because attendance was so low they had to lay off the workers that were supposed to provide the amenities to the season ticket holder.
I didn't even know that, but that's so.
Oh yeah,
it's from 2 years ago. There's a lawsuit. There's still a lawsuit pending between season ticket holders and Marlins ownership. But a lot of that goes back to Loria. That's not on Jeter. Jeter inherited the shit show.
Yeah, Loria is a genuine criminal.
Marlins
they just need to
like
shove that stadium into the sea.
Marlins are like the Fire Festival of baseball teams.
Yes, Marlins are Fire Festival with without 5 full starting pitchers. Yeah, exactly. We'll see if John goes over there. Are you going to get to see the Cubs play anywhere like on the road? Anything syncing up with your schedule this year?
That there's a couple in May. I think we have the Mets in May. Hang on.
Sure.
I literally can tell you because I keep a pocket organizer.
Oh man.
I honestly thought you had a handful of tickets. That was going to be amazing.
Yeah.
No, that's insane. Here we go. May 4th and 5th. Cubs Cards. The At the Dodgers series in June, we're eyeballing. Cubs Mets in New York the following weekend, we're eyeballing. Nice. What else we got? Cubs Pirates Little League World Series.
Oh,
that's a good call. Yeah.
We're eyeballing.
Yeah. Keeping it on the radar.
Yeah, Cubs Brewers in Chicago. I need to see more road games, though. I go to Wrigley once a year as much as I can, but I'm trying to do that Bill Burr thing where I see every stadium for all of the big 4 sports teams.
Me too, yeah.
Jeez.
But they keep building them so fast. I just, and to be honest, I've done nothing to really work at most of, for every league, I've only seen 3 stadiums. Baseball, I think I have 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But baseball's more worth it because they're all so different. I mean, an NBA arena is an NBA arena. I don't really see the point.
Yeah. And does it count if you go to an NBA arena that doubles as a hockey arena, or do you have to see hockey?
Right.
I should ask Bill Burr next time.
What the rules are.
Yeah, if you could just see one guy in a hockey jersey, you count it. I think that's good.
But we'll let you go, man. I know you got to get back to work, but thanks again for hopping on. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, dude. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Roy.
All right, yep.